We read about the Navi Sheker, the false prophet, who comes and speaks in the name of Hashem, and he's proven that he's a true prophet because he performed a miracle, a supernatural act, and he forecasted the future. And he tells the people, in the name of Hashem, they must go do idolatry. So the Torah tells us, without question, this man is a false prophet, and he must be put to death. That's Navi Sheker. And the Torah says, Lo sishma al divrei hanovi ahu. Don't listen to the words of this prophet, or acholim acholim ahu, or this dreamer. Ki menasa Hashem elokechem eschem. Because God is testing you. Lo das hayishchem aohavim es Hashem elokechem b'chol levav b'chol nafshchem. Do you love God with all your hearts, with all your soul? To what degree do you love Hashem? Achrei Hashem elokechem teilechu vositiro. You must go after God, and you must fear Him. You must revere Him. That's mitzvos of tishmoru. You must retain His mitzvahs. We call tishmo. Vositavdu nubo tidbokun. Torah says you must go after Hashem. Vositiro. You must fear Him. We've discussed in the past what is the ultimate level of fear. Fear does mean yirsa onish, being afraid because you could be punished. The reason why you're listening to the word of Hashem is because if you knew you wouldn't be punished, you wouldn't listen. The reason is because you have no choice. That should not be the basis for service of Hashem, but rather it's out of reverence. You feel privileged, understanding who Hashem is. You're privileged to have the opportunity to serve Him. This is the ultimate concept of Yiras Hashem. That's reverence. But factually, it's still referred to as fear. Why does one have fear when you have reverence? Once mentioned, name it a Maral, the Gemara tells us that there was a Tana, his name was Shimon Amsuni. He interpreted every S in the Torah. The word S itself has no interpretation. It indicates there's an adjunct to whatever the S is associated with. For instance, Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro. You must revere Hashem, fear God. So Shimon Amsuni, his whole life's treatise was to interpret every S in the Torah. He comes to the pasuk, Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro. He says, Kishem shekibalti schal al adrisha, kacha kabel schal al prisha. As I've received reward for interpreting all the S, now I realize that it's a mistake. Because who could we compare that Hashem wants? We should revere that person or that entity to the degree you should revere him. Therefore, he was about to retract everything he's ever said. Rabbi Kiva said, not so quick. Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro l'Rabbis Talmid Chachomim. That you should revere Hashem, but he also wants you to revere Talmid Chachomim, Torah sages, no less than you revere him. So the question is why? Why is it so important to esteem and revere a Talmud Chacham to the degree that you revere Hashem? So the Maral explains that to the degree that you revere the Talmud Chacham, that will be the degree that you value his teachings. His teachings have special value because you revere the person who communicates those teachings of Torah to you. So what's our relation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Through the Torah. So the level and the degree that we're able to esteem and revere the Torah, that will be to determine how we revere Hashem. So if we revere the Rebbe, the teacher, as you revere God, that gives the teachings that special value. This is Es Hashem Elokecha Tiro, the Rabbis Talmid Chachomim, that Hashem wants you to revere the Talmud Chacham no less than you revere him. It's a famous story. Rav Chaim Volozhiner, who was the primary Talmud of the Vilna Gaon, he was the Talmud Muvok of the Vilna Gaon, and he always spoke about his Rebbe, Rav Chaim Volozhiner, and he had a son who ultimately became his successor in Volozhin, and he says to his father when he's 10 years old, when are we going to go see the Rebbe? He used to refer to the Vilna Gaon as the Rebbe. He never met the Vilna Gaon. As soon as he mentioned the Vilna Gaon, when are we going to see the Rebbe, Reb Chaim Volozhin began to tremble. Just thinking about his Rebbe, he began trembling. This is the degree that he revered his Rebbe. So if you revere the Rebbe, that when you think about him, you begin trembling, to what degree do you value the words that come out of the Vilna Gaon's mouth when he communicates it to us? The Gemara tells us in Shabbos that a person who doesn't say a proper hesped for a Talmud Chacham when he passes away, he deserves to be buried alive. So Marish Sivir Zeichot Tzarech Livrocha explained the Gemara, and the Gemara cites a pasuk that the Zakanim, they did not eulogize Yeshua ben Nun properly. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused that the mountain should shift, and they were nearly all buried alive. So from here we learn that if a person doesn't say a proper hesped for a Talmud Chacham, he deserves to be buried alive. So he says, why? What is the midah keneged midah? What's the measure for measure? So he explained the question which the Rishonim asked, the early commentators asked, it's a Medrash Tanchuma, we said Nasav Nishma at Sinai. And yet, after we said Nasav Nishma, Hashem puts a mountain over our heads and he says to us, If tu kablu butav, if you accept it, fine. If not, Shamteit Kfuraschem, we will be buried on the mountain. We've already said Nasav Nishma, we accept it unequivocally. So the Medrash Tanchuma answers that the Nasav Nishma was on Torah Shebechsav. Torah Shebal Peh, they weren't willing to accept. Because that takes a full investment of your life. They weren't willing. For that, Hashem put the mountain over the heads. He says, you have to accept that. If not, you can be buried under the mountain. What's the basis for Torah Shebal Peh? The basis for Torah Shebal Peh is Masorah. What's the Masorah dependent upon? On the teacher. So therefore, if it's the teacher, it's the degree that you revere the teacher, that will be the result of that communication. So if a person doesn't eulogize the Rebbe properly, that means you don't value him sufficiently. If you don't value him sufficiently, so what happens to the Masorah? The Masorah becomes a faulty Masorah because you don't pay attention to it, because you don't value it sufficiently. Therefore, just as then we were deserving to be buried alive, we would have rejected Torah Shebal Peh, not appreciating the Rebbe sufficiently, Roy L'Kor B'Chayev, he deserves to be buried alive. That's the midah keneged midah. So this is the Osa Tiro. Hashem wants us to revere him, but the only pathway to revere him is to revere the Rebbe, because the Rebbe is the vehicle to understand who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is.